Hello and welcome to today's content, which will be preparing for the Carbuncle raid because it has been announced and it starts this Wednesday. Pretty much I'm going to be going over the resistances and the recommended units as usual, and all I have to say is the raid item this time around is going to be the white marshmallow. It looks like a accessory beanie thing. It is an accessory, and what it is known for is that it has poison, paralyze, confusion, petrify, sleep, resist, and it gives on top of that like bonus 20 accuracy at max. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So for the resistances for the raid, we're going to be starting off with Slash at negative 15%, Dark at negative 15% as well. As you can see, obviously Dark and Slash are going to be very strong here. For all other elements, we're going to be at 0%. For Strike and Pierce, we have 10%, so it's not too high, so you could bring them and do decent damage, but the other resistances are obviously much better to just use for Slash. 20% to Missile, so you should not bring Missile units, and 25% to Magic Attack Resistance, which is very high, so you should not bring it. Even if you have Penetration, I highly recommend do not bringing it. It has a base of 30 defense and 30 spirit and 70 faith. 70 faith is actually not bad, so that means if you did do magic damage to it and it didn't get reflected, then it actually does a decent amount of damage. So what you should obviously bring is going to be Dark types, Slash, and Dark Slash. Imperils are going to be very good here. Esper and Nether Beast Killer does work on the Carbuncle, so you should bring those as well. Defense debuffs and penetration always going to be good, especially this time around. 30 defense or 30 spirit is pretty significant. You should definitely bring penetration if possible. Steal time does work on the Carbuncle. Magic attack resistance is very good to bring, especially because, as you can see, the damage you can take is going to be non-attributed magic as well as light magic, considerably. Do not bring magic that can be reflected. I'm looking at all those people trying to like slap in a mage and be like, yeah, we should be fine. No, it will be reflected and you'll be killing yourself and your team. What Carbuncle does is that it does buff itself with reflect for up to 5 turns. That's why physical attack hitters obviously are going to be the way to go. It doesn't actually have a lot of immunities to most like debuffs and such, so you should bring as much as you can for those situational. Status effects, however, are not going to be very useful on Carbuncle, so don't bring those. So Espers that have Esper slash Light Killer, it's going to be Fenrir, Demon Wall, Diablos, Leviathan, Omega, and Behemoth. They all either have either Esper Killer or Light Killer, so they're going to be very good and useful in this raid. So units to bring for the raid. Definitely Dwayne, especially with his EX now being released, will be one of the best in this raid. Like, he can not only lower the dark resistance and also lower slash resistance, he's just gonna be so good here. Stern EX is also still gonna be very good as well. We don't see him very often, but he still hits like a truck and he is excellent for dealing damage to this raid. I would highly recommend even bringing damage cap increase if you do decide to bring Stern. Runestern as well, he's always still going to be good. Hazard Crush will be very nice. However, if you do have an EX Venera, she does Runestern's job kind of better currently because she has her EX version and she does very good DPS in that regard. For the good and decent DPS units, Black Rose Helena here is specifically here mostly using her Spell Blade abilities. You do not want to be using magic attack type like related spells because those can be more easily reflected, especially with Carbuncle who has Reflect. However, the Spellblade abilities, most of them do not have Reflect or are not able to be reflected, so you should be focusing on that. Ziza will be very good. She has her Debilitating Fist, is very nice to have, and she has a Dark type. And Kane will also be decent here because he does have Piercing Lance for the Pierce Resistance in Peril, as well as being Dark type, so he can still hit hard. Additionally, we have Tidus here, who I will say, if you do not have any of the dark teams, Tidus will be excellent here because he still has Jet Shot and he actually does very good damage. And he's very good at raids, just because of his capability of dealing damage and DPS, and chaining. Outside of that, we do have Zazan. If you do decide to bring Zazan, he will need a lot of damage and he will need triple split in comparison to the dark types and specifically Tidus. And I say this because he is working off mostly the defense penetration rather than a flat 30 defense down from like Jet Shot in comparison to Tidus specifically. But Zazan still has triple split, which is very strong hitting, especially his EX version, and it could be easily used to chain for high damage with other Zazans. For the attack and peril setup units, we do have the other units like Gilgamesh and Ramada and all them. However, King Mont does have defense penetration if he has the correct setup from either his vision card. So that's why he's only the real one that made the list specifically here, because Carbuncle does have a good amount of defense and spirit specifically. From here, Bell's obviously always going to be good. Smart Coat for the magic resistance and high spirit. We have Thancred's TMR, especially for the mages because it has light resistance, and then Armor of Light, which is very nice to have because it has the magic resistance as well, but for armor types. For the offensive setup, definitely Diablos for dark teams will be one of the best #1 cards to put in your party for not only damage but also mitigation. Additionally, the perks of Charm, I believe, this is the vision card, it does have Light Killer, which will be very useful if you want a little bit more damage. Outside of that, slash units in general, Echoing Screams will be the best 35 slash modifier in general. For defensive setups, I know I put in defensive, but you can argue that both these defensive setups can also be significantly well used in offensive, but I put them here just to show, for example. Obviously, Fenrir will be very good as well, but Omega and the Dwayne Vision card would be very good for dark teams. If you have them, I would highly suggest bringing them as well. Utility kind of speaks for themselves. I don't really have to talk too much about them. They will be very nice in terms of like filling up filler spots for your vision cards. So yeah, I hope this kind of helps on what you should think about bringing for the Carbuncle raid. Moving on to the resistances for the rare raid, which is going to be the Kraken. Ironically, this is also kind of like the mini dragon, almost very identical, but it's water type, very strong against fire. But yeah, it's gonna be very weak to magic and pierce types to -15%. Lightning is -10 elemental resistance. All the other elemental resistances are 0 except for fire at 20%. So sorry, Kingmont. Once again, another raid you are not gonna be used here for the rare raid specifically. Strike and slash resistance are gonna be 15, and then 25% for missile. So don't bring missile. I'm sorry, Frederica. Even with your penetration, I mean, unless she is EX, I could argue that she could be usable here. But other than that, there's just better choices. He has a base of 10 defense at a certain level, like especially at max level specifically. If I should just go off that, and he has Spirit 0, Faith at 70. So as you can see here, magic in general will probably out damage most physical setups depending on who you bring for magic. So what you should bring specifically to the raid, Lightning Elements is very nice to have, Lightning Pierce, Lightning Magic, Slow also works on the boss, and then we have Pierce and Magic as well, just any of those types if you can bring them and they're strong. What you want to bring is Spirit and Defense debuffs, Penetration. Penetration not too much, only for the defense side, but not even then. I believe debuffs and imperils are going to be so much more better than Penetration here. Specifically for Magic, Spirit Penetration was not going to be used here at all, so it's not really useful. It's mostly going to be for defense, if anything at all. The Kraken is aquatic race, so Aquatic Killer does work, as well as Steel Time does work. However, Kraken is immune to agility breaks, so unfortunately for that, no Trinity breaks and such, it's not going to be working with him. For damages and statuses you take, Kraken actually spams the blind status effect if you do get blinded by it, so you have to be wary about that. He does water magic, water missile, and water non-attributed, which is a little bit weird, but yeah, so he's more water oriented. You should bring more magical oriented defenses such as like Spirit. Espers that have aquatic and water killer are going to be Aigaon, Ramu, and Tetra. So units to bring for the rare raid. The recommended solo carry DPS units I'm going to say to bring specifically for Kraken, I will say 9S once again is going to be a champion here. He's just going to destroy the Kraken boss pretty much. Skullhull is going to be very, very strong here as well. Not only the elemental advantage, he also has chaining because of his limit break. However, he doesn't have EX, so he'll be a little bit lackluster there. Sid, obviously, as everyone knows, not only does his Black Lion buff on himself prevent him from getting blinded for 3 turns, he also has Divine Ruination and Armor Crush. He will also be very, very formidable against the boss. So good DPS slash decent DPS units. Blackroar Palena will be very good here because he is weak to magic types. And Kane is also a very strong piercer, even though he doesn't have EX, he still has Piercing Lance. And Camillo, newcomer, he will also be very good here with his jumps if he's able to pull it off onto the boss. Just keep in mind though, he does have a lot of cast times, but it's still viable. For attack and peril setups, obviously Gilgamesh, Ramada, Kilfi, I really should revamp this this area. I probably will in the next upcoming raid, but yeah. Attack and perils are gonna work on this boss just fine. If you have a good setup, go for it. Bells are gonna be always very good. Titus's necklace is gonna be good for the spirit as well as crit damage, just boosting your overall damage. And then the glasses item that we got and is farmable right now from the Typhoon challenge is gonna be good here because it gives you blind resistance. Ironically, the spirit resistance on the glasses is not going to be used at all on the Kraken, but for the blinding resistance, you can mitigate getting blinded with it. For the offensive vision card setups, we have the Coral one, which is going to be one of the best for lightning attack up. We have dashing over the hills, which is going to increase pierce attack, and then we have True Soul for magic specifically. Obviously, if you have elemental types, you can bring those, but those will be the most beneficial ones to like taking down the boss in terms of their main weaknesses. Defensive setups, I put mostly just Demon Wall, mostly because Demon Wall gives you slash resistance, which is not really going to be used at all, but mostly because it's going to be giving you pierce attack as well. So I can't really even say it's much defensive, but it's just a mixed vision card type, so I couldn't put it on the offensive side compared to the other vision cards. And yeah, if you like that, I hope this video pretty much helps you get ready for the raid, and yeah, let's get raiding.